Hey, good morning, App Properties. It's Amy Corr here. It's Friday, March 20th, and thanks so much for joining Kevin and I again for another morning with a cup of coffee. It's either been the longest week of our lives or the fastest. Hard to say, but nevertheless, hope you're all doing well, and we appreciate you joining us again.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Hi, Amy. Good morning. I'm glad we're having coffee together again. Hi, everybody else. Hopefully you have coffee, tea, water, lemon water, maybe, if that's how you start your day. We have a good topic today, and it comes from a lot of the suggestions or questions that we've gotten over the last week. And so today we want to talk about mortgages and lending, and we have a special guest who we'll introduce in just a moment. But today what we're going to cover, number one, is what's happening with rates. We're then going to talk about how we're working with buyers in this current environment. We're going to talk about sellers as well. We're going to talk about how we can prepare sellers and what we can do as brokers. And then we're also going to talk about what the current activity looks like. We can't predict far into the future, but we can at least look at what might happen over the next few weeks. So with that, Amy, you want to introduce our special guest?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. So I'd like to welcome Mike Nielsen, VP of Mortgage Lending with Proper Rate. He's here with us to talk about loans, what he and his team are seeing in light of the coronavirus right now, and how they anticipate handling getting buyers to closing moving forward. Good morning, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. How are you?
We're good, thanks. So I want to kind of jump right in. And first thing, I want you to tell us what's happening with rates right now. Specifically, we're hearing terms such as 0% out there. Can you tell us what that means?
So first I wanted to cover, and kind of first and foremost, is that business as usual at Proper Rate. We are still taking applications. We are still pre-approving buyers, putting them into underwriting and getting them to closing. So please know that whatever loan officer you work with should still be available, possibly working from home, as a lot of guaranteed rate and Proper Rate employees are doing, but definitely business as usual, if I can't stress that enough. 0%, what that means is the Fed cut the prime interest rate to 0. Our phones rang off the hook Sunday and into Monday and Tuesday, people wondering if they could get a 0 or a 1% mortgage. That's definitely not the case. The prime rate is the short-term money. We're talking about home equity loans, credit cards, things like that, not the 30-year fix. Interest rates are hovering for a 30-year fix around low to mid 3s, into the 2s for a 15-year fix, which is a popular product for people these days as they look to cut their term and save as much in interest as possible. So interest rates are great. It's a very volatile market from one day to the next. So please know that, and please let your buyers know that. But we're moving right through this. So that's great.
That's good. Thank you for clarifying that, because there was some confusion about the 0% that we'd seen in terms of whether that translated into mortgage rates. So thank you. So let's talk about now, in a quarantine, or some communities have gone into a shelter in place. So has that changed anything in terms of starting to work with buyers and getting pre-approvals out?
It really, honestly, it really hasn't, because a lot of our world is now digital. We are doing a lot of things over the phone, online applications, people applying through our website, and doing a lot of things, of course, via email. So though the volatility there creates a little bit of difficulty in not knowing what's coming from one day to the next, what we do know and what will remain constant is pre-approving people, getting them into underwriting, getting them approved, and then going to closing. So it's very important to know that we're still doing that.
Thanks, Mike. So what can we do to prepare our buyers that are currently under contract? And, specifically, I want to talk about setting expectations. Do we need to talk with our buyers who've just gone under contract about timelines? Is it going to take them longer to actually get to closing? And then specifically, I know so many people get concerned in regards to underwriting, and, if there's going to be any hiccups with the people who are underwriting the loans to get them to close.
People should know that underwriting and processing turn times are still a rush to us to get something to closing, start to finish, is typically 2 to 3 weeks. We're probably running more at that 3-week level, maybe pushing soon towards 4 weeks. But still, again, compared to other banks and other lenders, which are probably at the terms of 60 days start to finish, so 2 months, our turn times are still really great. So people should know that in these longer turn times, their buyer should get pre-approved well before you're out there looking at properties, so that day one from going under contract, they can reach out to the lender and start that process from day one, not day one after the inspection is done or anything like that. There's times I get a purchase contract that's already 10 days in. You know, it was signed 10 days ago. Well, you just lost 10 days with the processing of the lender, the appraisal, all that kind of stuff. So very important. Can't stress it enough that the minute the buyer goes under contract, that the agent and or that buyer is reaching out to the lender to say, hey, we're ready to go. Let's get this moving forward now. So.
All right. That's good. We talk about buyers a lot, right? So we talked about pre-approvals. We just talked about moving them through a contract to close period. One thing I want to ask, though, is we all have sellers, right? So we may have a listing now, or we may have a seller that we're beginning to work with. How can we prepare them? What can we do as listing agents to make that process run more smoothly?
I think this part is just as important as what we just said on the buyer's agent side. Being the list agent, we talk about setting expectation with your sellers. But you really, in addition to having those expectations set, is you want to have answers to go back to your sellers with. And a lot of those answers are going to come from knowing who the lender is, knowing who the lending company is, what state are they in, and asking the right questions. In regards to the questions we're asking here today, underwriting turn times, is closing going to be affected by what's going on in our world? When are you going to order the appraisal? How long have you been in the business? Just very, sometimes very general questions, but connecting at the onset of the contract with that lender, as opposed to 4 weeks into the deal where you're wondering why the appraisal wasn't ordered and you've never talked with this person that's supposed to be a pretty, key part to the process. So as a listing agent, call the lender. I would say if we're doing 30 purchase transactions a month, maybe 5 listing agents are reaching out to me, but those are the ones that are asking the right questions up front, and that's what a lot more than 5 should be reaching out to me. So again, please make sure to reach out to your lender.
I think that's really great feedback, Mike. So, in this new environment right now where we're all working remotely, we're trying to do things virtually, I want to talk a little bit about closing. I know that Proper Rate has a couple of different types of closing options for buyers. Can you take me through those and explain, what buyers qualify for these different types of closing options?
Yeah. So again, closing should be, of course, obviously face-to-face interaction and distancing and things like that is important, but closing should also be business as usual. We're still moving forward and moving people to closing and getting things closed. That said, we do have 2, they're actually not newer options to us, but super helpful in this environment. One is called flash close. Flash close is where the morning of closing, the buyer will get a DocuSign package and allows them to, at that moment before they start their day and before they go to closing, sign about 90% of the documents, to then where they then go to closing, meet at a title company with the closer, and closing should be cut down to maybe 20 or 25 minutes, which, compared to 60 to 90 minutes is a huge difference with that face-to-face interaction with someone at a title company. Second option, and probably most useful in these times, is what we call e-closing. E-closing, similar to flash close, you will get your some of the documents ahead of time. Other documents that need to be notarized and are required for someone, a third party, to know that you are who you are signing the documents can be done via interaction how we're talking right now, which is a video and microphone from your computer, so that they can verify with IP address who you are and who you say you are, and they'll get a copy of your identification or your ID. And then all of that information is used to fund the loan. So no face-to-face interaction is needed for our e-close.
That's great to know. And, I would recommend to all of you agents that are out there, if you are working with a lender right now, making sure you really understand what kind of process your buyers are going to go through so that they're ready and can be really efficient, whether it's a flash close or an e-close. I know that depending on who they are and the type of loan that they've got, different terms, apply. So Mike, I want to ask you about this. Obviously we've seen a lot of stuff going on this entire week, and I know more things are coming down the pike as we all move forward. But want to understand, we're in a spring market. What is activity looking like right now for you and your colleagues? Normally, lenders and agents right now are super, super busy. Are you seeing that buyers are pulling back? Are people deciding that they want to hold off? Are you seeing a slowdown with any kind of loan applications? We feel like, getting a sense from you is going to help some of our agents understand what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so with interest rates so low, regardless of the volatility, that makes us busy. Sometimes refinance transactions, but I'm still pre-approving buyers. I will say that January and into February were busier than the last couple of years. Literally day after New Year's, people were hitting the ground running, getting pre-approved. A lot of those people are now under contract or have closed. Fast forward to now, in the last couple of weeks, there is a little scare out there, probably more than a little scare. So I have had a few people that really haven't started looking yet say, hey, we're going to pump the brakes for a couple of weeks, just kind of feel this out. Not sure where the markets are going, where our money is going, where interest rates are going. So there is a little bit of that. But people that I have yet to have anyone that was already under contract a couple weeks ago back out of the deal, or anything like that. So again, people are still doing what they're doing, but I think a few people are kind of taking a little pause to see what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks as they're at home and things might be a little different with their job at the moment. But it seems to be a little bit, regardless of how long term COVID-19 is, their pause seems to be a little bit more short term.
Got it. All right. Thank you. I think one of the overarching things and themes here is communication, right? And we've talked about communication with clients. We've talked about communication with our database and such, but I think it's really key to be in close communication with your loan officer, to be in close communication with the attorney, to make sure we can continue representing our clients and really getting them to the finish line, or at the very least, providing them with the information they need to be prepared and know what they can expect. So I do have a question for you too. And today we're going to call it the superstar question. So if you had, actually there's something that's more appropriate. Let's do this. If you had to choose a favorite takeout place in Chicago where you could either take out, and this includes the suburbs, your favorite place to take out or get delivery from, what would that restaurant be? And what would you order?
Big Star Tacos would be my, I love sitting there and having a margarita or a whiskey or something like that. But for takeout, just the same, the tacos are amazing. Probably the pork belly.
Got it. That's perfect. Amy, how about you?
Wow. Well, actually my husband and I were just talking about Pequod's Pizza yesterday and how we used to order it all the time in the city, kind of that thicker pan crust style. That and a beer sounds really good about now.
Especially at 7:30 a.m. Good choice.
With your coffee.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Amy, Mike. One of the things we're going to send out is where you can find your proper rate loan officer. So you can reach out to your managing broker. You can reach out to your office manager. And again, we're going to be distributing that so you know who to reach out to. If you have any questions, comments, insights, anything you want us to cover or questions we can answer, please send them to atcoaching@properties.com. That's @coaching@properties.com. And then I want to send a couple of reminders. The first is to continue to collaborate. And that is to share information, to talk with each other, maybe start a text thread, maybe on Facebook. However you do it, communicate with your colleagues to make sure that we're all staying together in a time where maybe we're stuck in our homes with our families for better or for worse. Being able to communicate with each other when we're not in the offices is really important. And then secondly, outreach. And what I mean by that is to our database, certainly to our clients, but to our database. And it's as simple as something like making 5 calls a day and asking how people are doing. You don't have to have an agenda. You don't have to have anything to talk about. It's just checking in, letting them know you were thinking about them. You want to see how they and their families are doing, and listening. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, certainly. And thanks again, Mike, Amy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a great weekend, everyone.
Have a good weekend. Thanks, guys.